The room went silent. Then Senator Tammy Duckworth lit it up. Calm, sharp, and deadly honest, she tore into Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, calling his failures staggering. Billions wasted, jets lost, troops misused, and Duckworth wasn't having it. A decorated veteran who's lived the cost of bad leadership, she gave Hegseth the kind of truth only a soldier can deliver. This wasn't politics. This was a reality check, live and unfiltered.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In response to my colleague from Oklahoma, I believe the Secretary of Defense has just responded last week and admitted that the $1 billion mission that he led against the Houthis, who do not have a navy, has not restored the transit of U.S. flag commercial vessels through the Red Sea, and in fact has resulted in the loss of 2 F-18 Hornets to the tune of $60 million apiece, as well as, I believe the last count was 7 Reaper drones to the tune of another $200 million. You are blowing through money like my fellow cadets and I did in our first Liberty after basic camp. Luckily, I didn't end up with a questionable tattoo. Your failures, Mr. Secretary, since you've taken office has been staggering. You sent classified operational information over Signal to chest thump in front of your wife, who, by the way, has no security clearance, risking service member lives in the process. You blew the $1 billion fight against the Houthis, whom, again, as my colleague says, has no navy, and yet you lost all of those aircraft. You've created such a hostile command environment that no one wants to serve as your chief of staff or work with you in other senior DoD leadership roles. But what we should all be talking about, more than all of this, is that you have an unjustified, un-American misuse of the military in American cities, pulling resources and attention away from core missions to the detriment of the country, the war fighters, and yes, the war fighting that you claim to love. I don't know if this is because you are too inexperienced and incompetent to understand the real threats facing our country, or if it's because you are just an unqualified yes man who can't tell the president how to keep Americans safe. You are focusing on renaming bases for Confederate generals. You said just now to Senator King that to a man and to a woman, we would rather be associated with the old Confederate names. Well, I am one of those women. I served at Fort Rucker, Alabama, a base that was named for a traitor who took arms against the United States of America, led troops who killed Americans. It was renamed for Mike Novosel, a Medal of Honor recipient, who in his citation for the Medal of Honor includes that he saved 29 American lives, to include hovering backwards in a helicopter towards an enemy bunker where a wounded American was laying and saved that person, including after being taken fire himself. I know a little something about what it takes to fly a helicopter when you've been hit by enemy fire. That was heroic. I'd rather be associated with Mike Novosel than a failed Confederate traitor. I don't know whether you are inexperienced or too incompetent, but I wonder when you will actually focus on our nation's warfighting mission. We know that California is just a deliberate, systematic, political, and dangerous campaign led by you. We should not be using our military to play cops against Americans. General Kane, as chairman, a key part of your job is to coordinate military planning across the joint force. Is the department currently incorporating into any military plans expanding the use of the reserve forces to include the National Guard or active duty troops to support domestic law enforcement, including in other locations in the United States?
Senator, you know, we careful.
No, General.
Well, it's not really a yes or no question, Madam Senator. We plan all kinds of different things.
I think it is a yes or no question.
I'm not aware of anything, but the reason why I'm answering is the tags may be looking at something that I'm not aware of.
What are you doing at your level? You're not aware of that happening at your level? Because we know that on his first day, President Trump directed U.S. Northern Command to revise its unified command plan to add new planning requirements to combat, and I quote, criminal activities. A series of follow-up executive orders continue to redirect DoD priorities to supporting domestic law enforcement, including one in April that tells DoD, and I quote, use national security assets for law and order. In other words, do law enforcement's job. I'd like to enter these executive orders into the record, Mr. Chairman.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered.
Secretary Hegseth, you say you are focused on warfighting and warriors. These are your words. Yet you are diverting untold DoD resources and attention to a fundamentally non-military mission of domestic policing. Across the country, we have qualified police officers who are trained for that mission. They know those streets better than the Marines you deploy to Los Angeles, who normally focus on the Indo-Pacific. And you recently approved 700 more troops in 3 other states to do admin and logistics works for ICE. You say all of this is valuable training, but I would much rather have our troops do tough, realistic training relevant to high-end combat. Instead of typing in spreadsheets for ICE, they should be conducting live fire maneuver exercises. Instead of patrolling American neighborhoods and standing in front of federal buildings, they should be rehearsing call for fire missions. We have local police who can stand in front of those federal buildings. And the list of distractions goes on. You are encouraging the DoD workforce to go work for DHS in increasing numbers. You're pulling the military away from facing foreign enemies who literally say things like death to America. And you're putting troops with weapons aimed at Americans. Mr. Secretary, let the military get back to its real job. Stop forcing them to do DHSs. And if you want to be DHS Secretary, maybe you can apply for that job when you're fired from this one due to your incompetence.
You can feel the air in the hearing room shift the moment Senator Tammy Duckworth begins to speak. Calm, deliberate, but cutting with precision. She doesn't waste a syllable. Sitting before her is Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the man who's been under mounting scrutiny for a $1 billion military operation that seems to have accomplished little except waste taxpayer dollars and cost American equipment and lives dearly. Duckworth lays it out. The Houthis don't even have a navy. Yet under Hegseth's watch, the U.S. lost 2 F-18 Hornets and several Reaper drones, hundreds of millions of dollars gone. And the Red Sea? Still unsafe for U.S. commercial vessels. It's the kind of statement that doesn't need embellishment. The facts themselves hit harder than any insults ever could. Then comes her signature style, that blend of humor, experience, and fire. You're blowing through money like my fellow cadets and I did on our first Liberty after basic camp, she quips, before adding, luckily, I didn't end up with a questionable tattoo. The laughter that line earns is brief, because what follows is deadly serious. Duckworth, a combat veteran who lost both her legs flying a helicopter in Iraq, speaks from experience. She's not talking policy as an observer, she's lived the cost of failure. She's felt what it means when leadership makes bad calls from behind desks. So when she tells Hegseth his failures have been staggering, it lands differently. This isn't political theater. This is accountability from someone who's paid the price for government mistakes. She calls out his reported sharing of classified operational details with his wife, a stunning breach of protocol that would have ruined the career of any service member below him. She points out the toxic command environment he's created, and she draws attention to something much deeper, what she calls his unjustified, un-American misuse of the military in American cities. Duckworth is reminding us that the U.S. military's mission is to protect Americans, not police them. Yet, under this administration, Hegseth has reportedly redirected Pentagon focus toward domestic law enforcement, deploying Marines to Los Angeles and other cities for administrative or ICE support. Duckworth sees that as dangerous, distracting, and fundamentally anti-democratic. She says it plainly. This is not the military's job. Our troops should be training for real-world combat, not standing guard in front of office buildings or typing data for immigration enforcement. Every time the Pentagon shifts manpower and money toward political stunts or domestic crackdowns, we lose readiness against real threats from foreign adversaries who literally chant death to America. And when Duckworth talks about renaming bases, that's where her personal history really pierces through. She served at Fort Rucker, a base once named for a Confederate general who took up arms against the United States. Now, it bears the name of Mike Novosel, a Medal of Honor recipient who risked his life to save 29 American soldiers. That's the kind of name worth honoring. That's the kind of heroism that reflects what our country should stand for. Duckworth says she'd much rather be associated with Novosel, a man who flew backward into enemy fire to rescue his fellow soldiers, than with a traitor who fought against the Union. The message is unmistakable. Patriotism isn't nostalgia for rebellion, it's the courage to defend democracy, even when it's messy, even when it's unpopular. And that's what makes her final words to Hegseth hit so hard. She doesn't mince them. She tells him, in essence, to stop pretending to be a warfighter while diverting resources to political theater. If he wants to work for DHS or do ICE's job, he can apply there. But as Secretary of Defense, his duty is to protect America from its enemies, not police its people. This wasn't just a heated exchange, it was a full-throated defense of American values, accountability, honesty, and respect for the uniform. Duckworth didn't need to raise her voice. Her record and her words did the heavy lifting. And in an era where bluster often replaces bravery, Tammy Duckworth just reminded the nation what the real thing looks like. So when she looks at Pete Hegseth and tells him that his failures have been staggering, it's not just a political jab. It's a warning that competence, integrity, and truth still matter in a democracy, and that the people, and veterans like her, are watching. If you're tired of political showmanship and want real leadership that stands up for the people who serve, then this hearing was a moment worth replaying. Because sometimes the most powerful accountability doesn't come from investigations or headlines, it comes from one senator staring a powerful man in the eye and saying the truth out loud. And that's exactly what Tammy Duckworth did. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts below, because this conversation is far from over.